Oh, you're muted.
Okay, so drop in the chat on here if you worked on your worksheets that we sent last week. I kind of want to get a feel for who did their homework, and we might share, sorry, the dog's going crazy. We might share some examples. Dakota, Tracy, anybody else? Of course, Dakota and Tracy did. Let me pull it up and see who all's answering. Tracy, Dakota, Stephanie forgot. Swellen said she did. Lizzie said she didn't do her homework. See, Lizzie, that's good. You're admitting you did not do it. That's the first step, admitting you have a problem. And now there's 48 people joining. I printed it and the kids ripped it. Everybody in? Everybody in? Heather worked on it. Okay. Saved it and forgot it. I totally understand that. So we talked about last week a lot of ways, like the negative thoughts that we have. Sorry, waiting room.
If you want to transfer it back to me so I can monitor it, you can if you want. That way when you're speaking, you don't have to. If you need to make me host again so I can do that, you're more than welcome to. That way I can monitor it for you.
Swapped back. Okay, so we talked about challenging. The two that I pulled were challenging anxious thoughts and also challenging negative thoughts. And I'll just read, for those of you who maybe missed it, I'll read kind of what the intentions were. Depression, poor self-esteem, and anxiety are often the result of irrational negative thoughts. Someone who regularly receives positive feedback at work might feel that they are horrible at their job because of one criticism. I know a lot of us, we like to perform really, really well. And sometimes when we don't perform really, really well, or we get one little critique, it like wipes us out. And I know that for type A personalities, that can really have a damper on how you perform in the, yes, yellows. That's really how it affects us. One little thing can just send us in a spiral. Their irrational thought about job performance will dictate how they feel about themselves. I've seen that a lot. Anytime one little hang up happens, it affects their performance in the future. It's not even that their performance was bad. It's just the way they feel about themselves. And that's all a mindset thing. It has nothing to do with how good you are. It has nothing to do with how talented you are. It's all in the mind. So challenging irrational thoughts can help us change what's happening, change those thoughts. Do you want me to go over the questions and kind of go from there?
Yeah, we can kind of go over some of them and then address kind of maybe how we can apply some of these things that you guys learned in your worksheets, like how you could apply some of that growth mindset to overcoming these thoughts that a lot of you guys shared with us in the chats and things like that. So yeah, you can go ahead.
Somebody drop in the chat a negative thought or a negative, something negative, so we can play with this, so we can fill in the answers to these questions together. Somebody give me something. Not thinking you're good enough. That one's perfect because that's kind of a very broad topic we can talk about. So question number 1, I want everybody to like go along with this and answer these questions as we go. So our negative thought is I'm not good enough. Like put this on yourself. Think that you thought that or someone else made you feel that way, thinking that you're not enough. So the first question, is there substantial evidence for that thought? Answer that in the chat. Is there substantial evidence for the thought you just had that you're not enough? See, the first person, no. Why not? Why is there not enough evidence? Let me know. Why is there not enough evidence? Right? What puts those thoughts in our minds typically? I mean, do people tell us that, or do we just think this stuff up? Do people tell us we're not enough most often? Because I am good enough. Good. Most often it's not that anybody tells us that. Every now and then you're going to run across a person who maybe tells you you're not good enough for something. But most of it is things we put on ourselves. You can feel it, confidence. Okay. Is there any evidence contrary to your thoughts? Is there anything against that thought? Yes. What's the evidence that's opposite of that?
Yep. So achieving, that's one. Yep. Looking at things that you've done to prove otherwise that you're not a failure.
Right. Still trying. You have other people that support you. I think that's a big one. Support's huge. Okay, so the next one. Am I attempting to interpret this situation without all the evidence? Are you believing something without all the evidence actually being there? Are you trying to figure out how to make the evidence appear that's not there? Y'all are flooding this. I can't even keep up. All right, so next, what would a friend think about this situation? A lot of you put in their support. What are your friends saying about this negative thought you got? They smack me. We do smack Tracy a lot. And your friends always tell you exactly opposite of what you're saying. Almost always it's the exact opposite of whatever negative thought you have. Okay, so if I look at this situation positively, how does that make it different? So we're sitting here thinking we're not enough. What if we flip that and we look at the positive side, the people who support us? We look at all the other evidence that we haven't looked at. The evidence that's total opposite. We do a total 360, right? We perform differently, right? Tell me to woman up. So what happens when we switch to that positive mindset? Just like I was talking about, type A personalities are the worst. One little thing blows us just all out of whack. But what happens if we make that fuel us? We perform even better usually, because we somehow perform better under pressure, because then we feel like we have to prove a point when there's no point to be proven. All right, last question. Will this thing matter from a year from now or 5 years from now? Kind of the big deal, little deal thing. Is it going to matter? Is what you're feeling in that very moment that you're not good enough, is that going to matter a year from now? Maybe if you stay there. But what if you look at it in a positive? What if you think positively? What's going to happen in a year from now? Hopefully you're able to take what you learn and pass that on to somebody else. Give them the finger and do the Dakota, I love you. All right, that's the end of that one. You want to move on? You got anything to say before we move? Takeaway. Big thing is takeaway. Did you want to add anything, Courtney, before we go to the anxious thoughts?
Oh, yeah. Removing language like that. Language like that removes your sense of control. Hopefully, faithfully, I'm not sure, maybe, possibly, remove all language like that from your vocabulary. I will be in a different place next year. I will be in a different place next month. I will do whatever. I am this, something like that. Because when you say possibly, hopefully, maybe, it leaves so much room for other things to control you, other things to control your mindset, and other things to control the outcome. Your job is to limit as much outside control as possible, because here's the thing, nothing outside of yourself can control anything you do. So a lot of the things that are okay, can you control someone getting into an accident with you? No, you cannot. You can only control your reaction to it. And a lot of the other things, how it impacts you. If you're having a rough month, you can't control people buying from you or not. You can't control a team member who wants to quit. You can't control your internet going out. You can't control all those things, but you can control yourself, your thoughts, your actions, your circumstances. And this is all to do with resiliency. So if you allow your circumstances to dictate what you think, what you do, then that will inevitably be what happens, what manifests, what is. Okay. And so if you think, or if you worry about something enough, it happens, it occurs, it exists. It is your reality. Okay. Whatever is up here is your reality. So change what's up here, because then your reality changes. This is how some people who might not be in circumstantially perfect conditions still have an incredible mindset and are still happy and are still fulfilled and are still driven and are still doing all these things without self-doubt and confident, because they control here. And this is gold. Okay. Not all these things around here. That's how people can go from being homeless to billionaires. Because if they allowed their circumstances to define them and what they had access to define them, or they allowed possibly or hopefully to define them, they wouldn't be where they are now. So definitely kind of removing that language is how you speak to yourself or about yourself is very powerful. I heard somewhere that said, would you speak to your daughter or your son the same way you speak to yourself? And that answer is always probably no, right? So speak to yourself like you would speak to your child when it comes to what you would imagine being possible for them. You speaking your will, their will for their life, what they could be. If someone was like, Mom, I want to be an astronaut, and you're like, no, that's not realistic. You should probably go be a grocery store clerk, right? Most of us will probably say, you can do whatever you want to. If you put your mind, it's hard work, but if you're dedicated to doing it, it's possible, right? So speak to yourself the way you would speak to your child or any child, right? And change your language. Your language is so, so powerful, because I almost think of it like pollution, or emissions, right? If we're talking about sustainability and a clean earth and clean world and stuff like that, right? So if like your brain is the atmosphere, all your thoughts, all the negative thoughts, all the absolutes, all these thought distortions we're talking about, the language that you use is releasing different amounts of emissions into the environment. And pretty soon you're gonna poke a hole in your own ozone layer. Okay. And it's just not going to be good. All right. That's where negativity pours in, and doubt and giving up and stopping, and all of these things happen. So definitely changing. And again, I think a lot of us use that language because we don't like taking responsibility for the fact that it is our choice to be happy, to find purpose, to find joy, to find the drive, to be successful. We always say certain things like that to somehow relinquish responsibility or relinquish control, that we are in 100% control of that one aspect. Because if you say certain things like that, then it kind of gives room for something to exist that you can then blame later on. That's just how we are as humans. So that's why language is such a powerful thing, using those affirmative I am, I will statements. And those are great, but that's just where it starts. The rest is how you believe it and how you walk in it. You can tell yourself all day long, I am 4K, but if you don't believe it, stop telling yourself, right? It's like, don't tell yourself a lie unless you're willing to believe it. You can lie to yourself all day long if you want to believe it. Sometimes you have to lie to yourself. You do. You have to lie to yourself because you're combating other lies, that you're not good enough, that you're not worthy. And so sometimes you believe those and they're not lies to you. To you, they feel like truth. And so at first you might have to lie to yourself and say, no, you are worthy. You can do this. You are a millionaire. And it feels like a lie at first. It does. But just like you started to believe that other bullcrap lie, you'll start to believe that one too. And then it will be your truth, just like all that other crap you were telling yourself was. So you can go ahead, Krista.
Okay, this time we're going to talk about anxious thoughts. It's more like talking about triggers, talking about problem solving. Anxiety can be a healthy emotion. It forces us to focus on our problems and work hard to solve. Sometimes anxiety can grow out of control, and it does the opposite. It cripples our ability to solve problems, and when this happens, the irrational thoughts often play a role. So we're going to take those irrational thoughts and kind of break them down. So we're going to practice catching the thoughts and replacing them with rational alternatives. This is the key. The thoughts are going to happen no matter what, no matter how positive you want to think, the negative's still going to happen, but how you handle that negative is what makes the difference. So let's describe a common situation that triggers anxiety. The examples it gives, let's not use these. Let's use something in the business, giving a speech in front of a crowd, or driving in rush hour traffic. Tell me something we can play with for this worksheet. What triggers anxiety for you in the business? Give me something. Zooms. Talking on Zooms. And what if when the plan falls apart? That one's good. So let's go with when the plan falls apart, because I think that's going to apply to everybody. What about that gives you anxiety? Obviously a lot, but break it down for me. What about a plan falling apart gives you anxiety? Let's get a couple of things. Having all the ingredients to help a person, no longer in control. That's huge for us. We don't like to necessarily be in control, but we like to control how the situation plays out. Expectations are not met, connecting with someone and then offering. Okay, so anxiety distorts our thinking by causing us to overestimate the likelihood of something going wrong. Time crunches, I want to nail it before. And imagine the potential consequences are worse than they really are. Most of the time we blow things out of proportion is basically what that's saying. Sometimes if we take a moment to think about the facts, that can help us recognize those irrational thoughts. So imagine we're faced with this problem. We're faced with this anxiety producing situation that we just talked about. When the plan completely falls apart, what is the absolute worst outcome possible? I mean, like, let's blow it out, totally out of proportion. Someone hates you because you let it fall apart, death, we fail ourselves. That's huge, Brittany. So Ellen says, I know, she just goes to like the absolute worst case scenario ever. I mean, I said go huge, but that's not where I was going. So Ellen, we need to help you with your negative thoughts. I failed, wasted time, money that I didn't have, got fired, end up with no home. Yes, Haley, ending up with no home, like you just lose everything. You said go deep. People talk bad about you, spread hate. Yep. And that ruins your whole reputation, right? If you get one bad apple, they can ruin everything. That's with any situation. So what's the absolute best outcome when your plan falls apart? People say, I told you so. Yep. Best scenario, find another plan. So our plan totally falls apart. What's the best outcome? This plan is better anyway. We learn, avoid a heartache that I didn't realize might have hurt me and find a better plan by accident. I love that. Lead you down a path to a better outcome. That's usually what happens, right? Learn from our mistakes, rank advancement last minute. We had a lot of those last night, didn't we, people? We had a ton of last minute rank advancements. All right, so stop trying so hard and it happens naturally. Problem solving on the fly, sometimes that's best, because when you get the pressure, a lot of times your best ideas come somehow, some way. So what is the most likely outcome? So we've covered the worst over here with deaths with Sue Ellen, and our best outcome is we learn and do better. What's the most likely outcome? Some of those best outcomes are actually most likely to happen. Sue Ellen, stop laughing. Learn what to do, what not to do, apply it next time, learning. We grow. Even if the plan falls apart and the absolute worst thing happens, we'll most likely still grow, right? You don't hit the goal, but you don't completely fail, right? What's that saying? You know, if you shoot for the stars or shoot for the moon and you miss, you still land among the stars, right? Unless we're like Sue Ellen and we just die in the rocket on the way there. Okay, so imagine the worst outcome. Let's forget death, because we're not going to apply that to this situation. Sue Ellen, you're out. So imagine the worst outcome comes true, except the death part. Would it still matter 1 week from now? Think about all those. If you have to scroll back up in the chat, think about if the worst outcome happened. Is it going to matter? And if you're a yellow, yes, everything matters. Let me scroll back up and find some examples. Someone hates you because you let the plan fall apart. That's definitely going to matter if you're a yellow. Mine would, because I mean, I would have nothing. Won't matter in a month or a year from now. So would it matter in a month from now? Let's use Haley's, because she talked about, losing her home, losing everything, which is very likely. What if our whole business falls apart? We have nothing. What if our husbands aren't working? What if you're the man, what if your wife isn't working, not bringing in money? What if you lose your job? What if you lose your home? Does it matter in a week from now? Most likely. Was it going to matter in a month from now? My husband's in the back chanting. Would it matter a month from now? Maybe. But hopefully we've grown and we've learned how to fix it, right? Is it going to matter in a year from now? Are you going to stay stuck there? You're going to stay stuck there and just pout because you don't have a home? Or are you going to go find something better? If that one plan failed, you never attempted another one and never attempted anything ever again, you're left homeless, just like she said. Find another way, never settling. You got to learn. Just like Courtney said, we cannot control the things that happen. I cannot control the fact that I may walk out my door and have a wreck, or Lord, lightning strike me dead, or my mom had a car wreck back around Thanksgiving, I guess it was, broke her back. Like, could I control that? Absolutely not. We can't control those things, but we can't stay stuck there. Some people need everything removed to start something better. Yeah, sometimes you got to learn to appreciate things by losing everything. There are things we need to shed that are holding us back, skills we never learn. Of course, she needs to hush because she's too good at this. But sometimes we have to lose everything to learn to appreciate it, right? Taking me to church, Hillary. Okay, slow down. Happy, glad, mad, or sad, you still have to deal with whatever that thing is, right? It is heaviest in the moment, but that's why we have to rationalize. Is it going to matter tomorrow? It might. Is it going to matter next week? Depending on how severe it might. Will it in a month? If you stay stuck there, it's going to affect you for a month. And just imagine if you carry that negative mindset all the way a year. What happened? Like, you're still stuck in the same position. But imagine if you flip that switch to the positive, how much growth could you have in a year? How much bigger impact could you have if you flipped that mindset? All right. So, sorry, we're like preaching. Let's go on. Usually anxious thoughts focus on the worst possible outcomes, even when they're not very likely. For example, a person who is nervous about giving a speech might think, I'm going to forget everything and embarrass myself, and I'll never let it down. That was one of the things we talked about. What if someone ruins our reputation? We'll never live it down. As an outside observer, we know that an alternate, more rational thought might be, my speech might only be okay, but if I do mess up, everyone will forget about it soon enough. So sometimes there's just little hiccups, and hopefully somebody forgets it soon. Using your own worst outcome and your most likely outcome that we talked about earlier, what is the most irrational thought we can have? What's the most irrational thought we can have? We kind of already went over that, so I won't make you do that again. And then what's the most rational thought? We pretty much already covered that because y'all are amazing and we're playing along. All right, Courtney, I'll let you take back over.
Yeah, I just kind of want, like, a lot of people, and especially when you're playing around with anxiety, what you're doing is it's like gambling, only in the worst possible way. You're not winning the lottery, right? So a lot of people approach their anxiety like the lottery. So, you have all these thoughts going into a pot, right? And you pull the one and you're just like, oh my gosh, the worst possible scenario is the worst possible scenario happening is just like how much possibility you have of winning the lottery. But you get stuck in it. and you allow it to control your life because you have lived and believed long enough in this disillusion that it is more likely than it actually is, which then, like we've talked about, actually does make it more likely. Because the more you believe it, the more life you give it, the more time and energy you dedicate to it. Guess what? If you're stuck in your head so much about being anxious about being homeless or losing your home or being broke or losing your reputation or people hating you or all these things we talked about, you're not doing all the things necessary to grow your business, to talk to people, to pour into whatever, to be a leader. So guess what? When you're not doing that, your business will suffer and you won't make the money, and all those things that you feared will come true. Okay. That is called a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? It's like if you're in school and you think that you're stupid, guess what you're not going to do? Study, because you think you're stupid. Guess what happens when you don't study? You don't pass the test, because it happens when you don't pass the test, you fail, and then you're like, I knew it, just be a huge failure, and I drop out of school. Right? Because you are attaching to the worst possible scenario, which is more likely, you're more likely to win the lottery. But most people go, well, you don't know me in my life. My life is just full of bad luck. It's not luck. Luck doesn't exist. Bad luck, good luck, not real. It's because of the things you have chosen to do or chosen not to do, or the lifestyle you have been stuck in, or the thoughts you've been stuck in. And also other people, if you're in a marriage or a relationship or whatever, they also have things they've brought to the table because of their mindset and all those outcomes that are happening, along with all your outcomes that are happening, right? And it all starts here. And so if you are stuck, so worried about all these things that could possibly happen, it is taking up so much real estate in your brain that it is not leaving enough room for all of that amazing growth and potential and all the affirmations and all the positivity. If your brain has like real estate space and you are worried and anxious and fearful and filled with self-doubt and lacking of confidence, think of it like real estate. It's like a monopoly board. It's buying up all the spaces, and you're having to pay dues and taxes every time until you're left bankrupt, because that's what you are giving permission to exist. You are selling all the real estate in your brain. And so you're wondering why you can't have a positive mindset. You're wondering why you can't seem to attract anything positive, and life only seems to be, a shit show. And you're like, what gives? I need something to happen. You have already sold so much. You need to sell this real estate. You need to kick out some residents in order to make new room for positivity and for a growth mindset and all these other things to live there, because all this is taking up too much real estate. That's all anxiety does. That's why it's so overpowering. Okay. It's because you give it too much real estate to exist. So it just takes over everything and makes it reality. It is the best at taking fiction, taking lies, taking something that is highly, highly, highly unlikely and making it reality for you. And you believe the lie. And then you act on the lie in order to prevent it. But the very thing you are doing to prevent it is making it happen. Okay, it is this huge, vicious cycle. And I think a lot of us can recognize when we have been stuck in that cycle, right? Like I talked about last week, if you're driving on ice and you feel it start to slip, you overcorrect, which then makes you go crazy and off the road. Okay. The ice isn't making you going off the road. Your reaction to the ice is making you go off the road. And so that's what a lot of us do with anxiety, and sometimes even with depression. Okay. Is you're giving so much power and real estate to those thoughts that it is so overpowering that your fear of it is what is driving you. But fear cannot drive you to success. So if fear is driving you, if fear is in the driver's seat, you will never find the success you're looking for. Okay. You will only find heartache on the way there, but you will never get there. Okay. Because that's not where fear goes. That's not where fear drives. That's not a road that fear is familiar with. It doesn't know how to get there. It can only lead you to destruction. Okay. Its GPS coordinates are set to destruction. And you're wondering why you're not getting to success over here. Okay. And that is why it's so powerful to work on these every single day. And sometimes you can say, which is funny. It's almost like an oxymoron. Like, I just don't have the mental energy to work on this today. It's like, right. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. You don't have the mental energy to work on being positive, which is why you're not positive, or why you're not having a growth mindset, and why you're not dedicating the time and the space. And you're like, I just need to take 5 minutes, and you're taking a million 5 minutes a day. And then that turns into basically all day. And then, so it's just so important to keep in mind the real estate that fear and anxiety and doubt and insecurity is taking up in your brain. Okay. It's almost like I want you to draw a big circle or a brain if you're very artistic, and just write all the things that you are fearful of. Okay. I want you to write all of the things that you are fearful of and see how much real estate it's taking up in your brain. You probably need a bigger brain picture for some of you. Okay. So start with a really big brain. But however, the size of the average brain is the size of your two fists put together. Okay. So that's as big as you're allowed to that's as big as you're allowed to draw your photo. Tracy's like, the fuck it is? What? I know she's like over here trying to be like, my brain ain't that little, but it is. Okay. That's as big as you can draw your brain. Now I want you to fit in all your stuff. I feel like you were very generous with yourself, but that's okay. That doesn't look like, okay. And fit in all the words, all the things that you are fearful of, all the things that take up space, all those intrusive thoughts, all those thought distortions. You're going to need to write really, really, really small. Okay. Then you literally have something you can look at and say, look how much real estate this is taking up in my brain. Now you can understand your struggle, why it's so hard to be positive. Do you get it now? It's so hard for you to be positive because look at what is filling it up. They need to go somewhere, right? Because you can only put so much more stuff in there. Some things need to go in order for you to make room for other stuff. And some of you will be like, oh, I know that I joined this opportunity so I can make money. So toss out the fear of being broke. Okay, and you replace it. But then the fear of not achieving rank replaces the positive thought you had of having financial freedom. So all you did was this like quick bait and switch. Okay. Yeah, Mikkel, seeing it in paper in front of me is scary. Yeah, it is. It is really freaky, right? Because it's easy to say that you don't think that, or it's easy to say you don't struggle with that. It's easy to say it doesn't take up real estate because you're a super positive, happy person, or, you know, I try my best, or I really, we all have them. All of ours would look like that. It is a constant struggle, but I need you to look at them. I need you to write them down and look at them, because it is so incredibly important to actually look at it. Because if not, it's out of sight, out of mind. You are going to naturally think you are better at this than you are. That's okay. It's the human condition. Okay. So you really need to write them down. And I want you to go through them and circle 3. Just circle 3 for right now that you really want to work on. And I wouldn't pick 3 huge ones. Okay. Because guess what you're going to replace that with when you can't check them off? You're not going to check them off. You're just going to add a 4th one, failure. Right. So be mindful, try to use some wisdom, know yourself, know your capability right now. Pick 3 that feel manageable and really work on those. Then when you feel like you've got a handle on them, you can erase them. And I want you to replace them with other words: confidence, wisdom, whatever. Okay. And having that picture up there, whether it's on a whiteboard or on a sticky note or wherever, looking at it and just saying, am I actively working on this? Because you can be in this weird fantasy where you think you are, but you're not. You think you are because you want to be, or you tell yourself you are. Just like if I was telling myself that I was on a weight loss journey, I could be on a weight loss journey for 25 years simply by telling myself I'm on a weight loss journey. But unless I'm stepping on the scale every day, or unless I'm watching what I eat, or being mindful about that, or doing whatever, then I'm not. Okay. And Emily, yeah. Hi. So that's why I think it's so important. You can say, yeah, I'm really working on it. I'm really working on it. But are you? And that's something that only you can tell yourself. And be honest, be just as honest with yourself as much as you lie to yourself. All of us lie to ourselves every single day. Why? because you tell yourself you're not as good, you're not as smart, you're not as anything, right? I'm not as blank as so and so. I don't have as much blank as whatever. I can't possibly do it. You lie to yourself all the time. Those are all lies. Every single one of them, and you believe them. Okay? So, if you're going to lie to yourself, at least do it so it benefits you. All right? Because again, you're lying either way, and those lies eventually become your reality. They become your truth. So swap them out for other lies that when they become your truth, they help you grow. They make you better. All right? Hand it back to Chris, because I know we probably want to wrap up in a little bit to let everyone get back to their evening. And this time I won't forget about boot camp.
Yes, and she needs to prepare for boot camp. I was just going to say, I was looking back over some of these that some of our other leaders plugged in, some things they struggle with mindset. Not all of them, but some of them I'm seeing are just irrational thoughts. Right? So let's go back and revisit those. And if you missed the chat, like she talked about earlier, think about some of the things that you struggle with mindset. Some, maybe not even you, some things that you struggle with your team as a whole with mindset. Are they really struggles, or are they just irrational thoughts that we need to maybe wipe off? One of the other worksheets I saw, and all this kind of ties together, I'm not going to go over a whole breakdown, but talking about automatic thoughts. And Courtney may have some more to add to this, but this is something I want you to think about because it will help you break down these irrational thoughts. Obviously, our thoughts control how we feel about ourselves and the world we live in. Positive thoughts lead us to feeling good. Negative thoughts lead us to putting us down. Sometimes our thoughts happen so quickly that we fail to notice them and they still affect our mood. So sometimes a thought might come in our head and it may not even trigger anything at that moment, but then it puts us in a really bad mood. We hear someone say something, we see something happen that maybe we don't really approve of, and it may not affect us right then, but it will affect the whole day. These are called automatic thoughts. Oftentimes, these are negative and irrational. Identify them and replace them with rational thoughts can greatly improve our mood as a whole. So, for example, this one can apply to us because we have jobs, right? So the example is, I made a mistake at work. The automatic thought with that is, I'm probably going to be fired. I always mess up. This is it. I'm no good at this job. I saw some of you talking about being fired in the chat. So just because you made a mistake, you're just going to be fired. You're just the biggest screw up, and I'm not good. I'm not good. What if we just say, this is our new thought. I messed up, but mistakes happen, and that's okay. I'm going to work through it like I always do. So you process that negative thought. We have the trigger. We go to the automatic thought, whatever that negative thing is. Instead of let's just twist it and tweak it just a little and say, it's okay that this happened. It's okay that I messed up. How do I fix it? And then let's fix it. Understand? Okay, Courtney, I'll let you close.
Awesome. So yeah, what we'll do too is a lot of people sent us in some of their irrational thoughts and some of the fears they have. And I think we can definitely use those. We'll go over them next week with some other kind of just some interventions and other things that we can help you guys use as strategies to change your thought processes. But definitely, I know we've kept you on a little bit longer than normal, but I definitely think it's very, very important for you guys to understand the process that goes into this, and that this is more than just hopping on a Zoom. This is more than just telling yourself you're going to do it. This is more than just writing something on a board. It definitely does start with visualizing it and seeing it, but it is actually working in it and walking in it and accepting that this is something that's going to, again, working it almost just like your business, right? Just because you say it and want it doesn't mean it's going to happen. You actually have to work it. And this is a lot. I'm not going to sit here and say this is easy. This is a lot of the stuff that I did working with my patients, in therapy, a lot of the stuff I did in IOP, and it does take time. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in a week, probably won't even happen in a couple months, but you're going to see slow and steady progress that as you do this over time, it gets better. And just like anything, the more things that you overcome that are very difficult without making exception will make you better. Okay. So in the very beginning, you're going to want to make lots of excuses as to why you can't do this right now, or how this circumstance is just different, or this one's just too hard, or this one's just no. You have to commit to doing it no matter what and sticking to it and overcoming them, because those are the very things that start making you better, because those are the very things that have kept you stuck in this particular situation or this particular mindset that you were in for as long as you have been in it. If not, and you just are telling yourself that it's too hard, or you think what I'm saying is complete crap, that's totally fine. Again, I would ask you, how's it working for you? That's always what I would ask my clients and my patients when they would just say, well, I just can't do that. It's too hard. What I'm doing right now is working. And say, but how is it working for you? Is your life exactly what you want it to be? Are you as happy as you want to be? Are you living the life that you know that you deserve? Most people go, well, no. Well, then it's not working. What you're doing is not working, and it probably needs to change. Okay. And I know it's a lot of tough love. And I know that's, sometimes a little bit more direct than what some people want to hear. But sometimes the truth is you're telling yourself you're working, but you are not. It's a very comforting thought to tell ourselves that we are working on our mindset, that we are trying to get better. But again, the trying aspect is something that we lean into a little too much. Okay. So I definitely want you guys to write these things down, all of them, all those intrusive thoughts, all those things that you feel like are holding you back, all of those anxieties or fears or thought distortions that we've talked about, and circle 3 of them. Just circle 3, probably smaller ones for right now to start, and just think to yourself, go back and do what we talked about earlier with challenging some of those thought distortions, right? What's the worst possible outcome that could happen? What is the best possible outcome that could happen? What could I learn from this? How could this help me grow? And then working on those. Okay. And then committing to doing it for a set amount of time, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, then go back after that time and measure. How did I do? Do I feel better? Is this still a worry of mine? Is this still something that's holding me back? Chances are, if you really did put the work in, it won't. And you slowly gain that momentum to grow and move forward and go on to bigger and better things. Okay. This is how people achieve those things that feel impossible, because they can't have these thought distortions and reach 80K or 200K or live out millionaire or whatever. Okay. So I challenge you guys to work on these throughout the week. Make some time, whether it's one big chunk of time, or little chunks of time throughout the week, and we'll touch back on it next Sunday. And I'm not sure what time Super Bowl starts, but I don't think it's 6, but we'll definitely make sure it's a lot shorter so people can still watch the Super Bowl. And that's pretty much it for tonight. I'll let you guys go. So thank you guys so much for hopping on. I'll catch all of you, hopefully, at boot camp at 7:30. All right. Love you guys.